Hey, what's happening, everybody out there in the XRP community? Thanks for coming back to Investment Perspectives. All right, guys, so I wanted to make a standalone video today because I just read an article early this morning that James Rickards had posted. For those of you that don't know, James Rickards is a precious metals expert. He's an American lawyer, a speaker, gold speculator, media commentator, and an author of finance. So I follow him. I highly recommend anybody in the crypto space follow him, and not because he's so much bullish on crypto, but because you can get great insight from somebody who's got such a depth of knowledge from the side of the precious metals market and finance in general. Okay, so that's who James Rickards is. I read an article that he posted this morning, and I found it to be so powerful. I have to share this with you guys. Now, it will take me a couple minutes, and as you guys know, I normally don't read entire articles. I'm going to read this one, because I feel like you need to ingest the entire article to really get it. So the article is by projectsyndicate.org. Time for a true global currency. Come on in. April 5th, 2019. Jose Antonio Ocampo wrote this article. The International Monetary Fund's global reserve asset, the special drawing right, is one of the most underused instruments of multilateral cooperation. Turning it into a true global currency would yield several benefits for the global economy and the international monetary system. Oh, that's how it opens up. New York this year, the world commemorates the anniversaries of two key events in the development of the global monetary system. The first is the creation of the International Monetary Fund at the Bretton Woods Conference 75 years ago. This took place. The second is the advent 50 years ago of the Special Drawing Rights, or SDR, the IMF's global reserve asset. This gets good. When it introduced the SDR, the fund hoped to make the principal reserve asset in the international monetary system. This remains an unfulfilled ambition. Indeed, the SDR is one of the most underused instruments of the international cooperation. Nonetheless, better late than never, turning the SDR into a true global currency would yield several benefits for the world's economy and monetary system. Come on in. The idea of a global currency is not new. Prior to Bretton Woods negotiations, John Maynard Keynes suggested the Bancor as a unit of account of his proposed international clearing union in the 1960s, under the leadership of Belgian-American economist Robert Triffin. Other proposals emerged to address the growing problems created by the dual dollar gold system that had been established at Bretton Woods. The system finally collapsed in 1971. As a result of those discussions, the IMF approved the SDR in 1967 and included it in its Articles of Agreement 2 years later. Although the IMF's issuance of SDRs resembles the creation of national money by central banks, the SDR fulfills only some of the functions of money. True, SDRs are a reserve asset, and thus the store of value. There are also IMF units of account, but only central banks, mainly in developing countries, in developed economies. And in international institutions use SDRs as a means of exchange to pay each other. The SDR has a number of basic advantages, not least that the IMF can use it as an instrument of international monetary policy in a global economic crisis. Hello. In 2009, for example, the IMF issued $250 billion in SDRs to help combat the downturn following a proposal by the G20. Most importantly, the SDRs could also become the basic instrument to finance IMF programs. Until now, the fund has relied mainly on quota, capital increases, and borrowing from member countries. But quotas have tended to lag behind global economic growth. The last increase was approved in 2010, but the U.S. Congress agreed to it only in 2015. And loans from member countries, the IMF's main source of new funds, particularly during crisis, are not true multilateral instruments. The best alternative would be to turn the IMF into an institution fully financed and managed in its own global currency. What? I'm going to read that part again. The best alternative would be to turn the IMF into an institution fully financed and managed in its own global currency. A proposal, you'll be surprised to know, was made several decades ago by Jack Pollock, then the fund's leading economist, One simple option would be to consider the SDRs that countries hold but have not used as deposits at the IMF, which the fund can use to finance its lending to countries. This would require a change in the Articles of Agreement because the SDRs are currently not held in regular IMF accounts. The fund could then issue SDRs regularly, or better still, during crisis, as in 2009. In the long term, the amount issued must be related to the demand for foreign exchange reserves. Various economists and the IMF itself have estimated that the fund could issue 200 to 300 billion in SDRs per year. Moreover, this would spread the financial benefits, señores, of issuing the global currency across all countries. I'm going to read that again. Various economists and the IMF itself have estimated that the fund could issue 200 to 300 billion in SDRs per year. Moreover, this would spread the financial benefits, señores, of issuing the global currency across all countries. By the way, XRP is being spread all over the world right now through the manner of, you guessed it, señores. I read on. At present, these benefits accrue only to the issuers of the national or regional currencies that are used internationally, particularly the US dollar and the euro. More active use of SDRs would also make the international monetary system more independent of US monetary policy. Come on in. One of the major problems of the global monetary system is that the policy objectives of the U.S. as the issuer of the world's main reserve currency are not always consistent with the overall stability in the system. Say what? In any case, different national regional currencies could continue to circulate alongside growing SDR reserves, and a new IMF substitution account would allow central banks to exchange their reserves for SDRs as the U.S. first proposed back in the 70s. SDRs could also potentially be used in private transactions and to denote national bonds. But, as the IMF pointed out in its report to the board in 2018, these market SDRs, which would turn the unit into fully fledged money, are not essential for the reforms proposed here, nor would SDRs need to be used as a unit of account outside the fund. The anniversaries of the IMF and the SDR in 2019 are cause for celebration, but they also represent an ideal opportunity to transform the SDR into a true global currency that would strengthen the international monetary system. Policy makers should seize it. Guys, I'm going to wrap it right there. But I tell you something. If this doesn't hit you the way it hits me, we are not on the same page. This is really, really powerful. And I think it carries a lot of weight that a man of the stature like Jim Rickards, a precious metals expert and an expert on finance, is sharing this article knowing full well what the implications are here. Because they're not talking and suggesting that they marry this all to gold. You can bet your bottom dollar on it. They'll be marrying this to a digital asset. And I believe that digital asset will be XRP. Guys, leave some comments below. Hit the like and subscribe button. And I will catch you on the next one. Take care.